Hello, welcome back to another evening of shared stories and adventures. Tonight, we're diving into the world of Hawkins, Indiana, and all the madness that comes with the final season of Stranger Things. I'll be covering theories and predictions for Vol 2 and Vol 3, what we can expect from the ending, and who might not make it out alive. Fair warning, this is all speculation based on Vol 1 and the clues we've been given, so nothing I'm about to say is confirmed. Just my thoughts mixed with the wildest theories floating around out there. So we'll start with a recap of where Vol 1 left us, since honestly, those first 4 episodes were packed with reveals. Then we'll move on to character death predictions, Vecna's endgame, the mind Flayer connection, and what the upside down actually is, as well as some ending theories that range from heartbreaking to somehow hopeful. Now, plenty to get talking about, but if you like what I do here and want a way to support the channel, consider subscribing down below. But for now, grab your Egos and your nail bat, get cozy on the couch, and let's begin. So, where did Vol 1 leave us? Let's talk about everything that happened in those first 4 episodes, because honestly, the Duffer Brothers packed a lot into them. The season picks up in the fall of 1987, about a year after the events of Season 4. Hawkins is absolutely unrecognisable. The rifts that opened at the end of Season 4 have left massive scars across the town, and the military has placed the entire area under quarantine. We're talking full lockdown. Military personnel everywhere, checkpoints, Big Brother cameras on every corner. According to Matt Duffer in interviews, nothing in Hawkins is normal anymore, and the character's movement is severely restricted. It's basically martial law, which is pretty terrifying when you think about it. The military has set up what the characters call the Big Mac, or officially, the Mac Z facility. It's this massive operation that straddles both the real world and the upside down. They've got gates, they've got equipment, and they're conducting experiments on upside down creatures. Demogorgons, particles from the upside down, all of it. And leading this whole operation is Dr. K, played by Linda Hamilton, who is absolutely brilliant in this role. Dr. K has one mission and one mission only: find 11. She's obsessed with capturing her, and according to Linda Hamilton herself, all the cataclysmic stuff happening around her doesn't shake her from that goal. It's a full-time gig for her, hunting down this girl with psychic powers, whilst the world is literally falling apart. The town itself feels suffocating. Everyone's trapped, everyone's being watched, and there's this sense that things are only going to get worse. The Duffers really leaned into that post-apocalyptic vibe, where hope is scarce and danger is everywhere. It's a massive shift from earlier seasons where Hawkins still felt somewhat safe, at least on the surface. Now, the events of Vol 1 are absolutely brutal. Episode 2 opens with one of the most intense sequences in the entire series. A Demogorgon breaks into the Wheeler house. Not near it, not around it, but straight through the ceiling of Holly's bedroom. The creature is there for one reason: to kidnap Holly Wheeler. She's Mike and Nancy's younger sister, and up until now, she's been this quiet background character. But the Duffers recast her with Nell Fisher specifically because Holly plays a massive role in Season 5. According to Matt Duffer, once you see the full season, you'll understand why it was so important to add her to the cast in a bigger way. The attack on the Wheeler family is horrific. Karen Wheeler, their mum, tries to fight off the Demogorgon with a broken wine bottle. She's stabbing it in the face, doing everything she can to protect Holly, but the creature slashes her twice. Once across the side of her torso, and once across her throat and chest. It's brutal. When Nancy and 11 find her, she's critically injured and losing loads of blood. By the end of episode 2, we learn she's in stable condition, but can't speak because of the damage to her throat. Ted Wheeler doesn't fare much better. He charges at the Demogorgon with nothing but a golf club, which, to be fair, is probably the most Ted Wheeler thing he could do. The Demogorgon slashes him clean across the chest, and he ends up in an induced coma. His fate is still uncertain by the end of Vol 1, but Holly gets taken. The Demogorgon drags her through the upside down, and she ends up connected to it through these tendrils, similar to how Will was back in season 1. Her body is in the upside down, but her consciousness is somewhere else entirely. We'll get to that in a moment, but it's important to note that Holly's kidnapping sets off the entire chain of events for Vol 1. Episode 4, titled Sorcerer, is where everything comes to a head. It's 83 minutes long, making it one of the longest episodes in the series, and honestly, it earns every second of that runtime. The military has been keeping a group of Hawkins children under watch because the gang suspects Vecna is targeting them. Will, Joyce, Mike, Lucas, Robin and Murray secretly lure these kids away before Demogorgons attack the barracks. It's this massive rescue operation, and for a while, it looks like they might actually succeed. Robin and Murray load the kids into a truck whilst the others create a distraction, but then Vecna shows up. His entrance is absolutely chilling. The Duffers confirm they were inspired by Darth Vader's entrance in Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and you can feel it. Vecna walks through the gate from the upside down, and the minute he appears, you feel his power. Soldiers try to shoot him, try to stop him, but he effortlessly turns their weapons against them. He pushes fire back on them, pulls pins on grenades, and it's clear that no amount of military force is going to stop this guy. According to Ross Duffer, they wanted it to feel like a huge moment, and they absolutely delivered. Then Vecna levitates Will and brings him face to face. "Can you see them, William? Can you see the children?" he asks. "Do you know why I chose them to reshape the world? It's because they are weak in body and mind." He says this whilst Demogorgons are dragging the children Will and his friends were trying to save into the upside down. Lucas watches helplessly as one child gets sucked through a wall. Robin sees that all the kids in the truck are gone, and Vecna, almost gently, touches Will's face and says, "And you, Will, you were the first." That line is massive. It confirms what fans have suspected for ages. Will's kidnapping in season 1 wasn't random. Vecna had a plan all along, and Will was the starting point. But here's where things get properly wild. Will's been connected to the Upside Down since his time there in season 1. He was possessed by the Mind Flayer in season 2, and even after that connection was severed, he could still sense things from the Upside Down. In season 3, he felt the Mind Flayer when it possessed Billy. In season 4, after the rifts opened, he could feel the Upside Down spreading. But in episode 4, something changes. Will unlocks powers of his own. Actual telekinetic powers, similar to Eleven's. The scene is incredible. Demogorgons are closing in on the kids, about to kill them, and Will just snaps. He can see through their eyes according to his own realization in the moment, and he uses that connection against them. He raises his hand, palm facing upward, in this motion that looks like he's pulling power from somewhere, and he breaks the Demogorgon's limbs. All of them. Just kills them instantly. Then he wipes his nosebleed with his sleeve, exactly like Eleven has done 1,000 times, and stares into the distance with this look of determination. According to Noah Schnapp in interviews, this was something the Duffers had been planning for ages. Ross Duffer said they've been talking about Will having powers for as long as he can really remember. It's different from Eleven's powers, though. Will isn't generating power from within himself. He's channeling Vecna's powers through their connection. It's like he's tapping into the hive mind and using it against Vecna. The hand motion was originally supposed to be palm down like Eleven's, but they changed it to palm up to show that Will is pulling the power from Vecna rather than generating it himself. It's a massive moment for Will's character. Throughout the series, he's been a bit more fearful than the others. He hasn't been a leader. But Robin has this conversation with him earlier in Vol 1, where they bond over identity and being one's true self. And that conversation is key to Will accepting himself and unlocking these abilities. It's about him finding his strength and his place in the group. And honestly, it's one of the most satisfying character moments in the entire season so far. Now let's talk about Max and Holly, because their situation is properly disturbing. Max has been in a coma since the end of season 4. Vecna attacked her. She died for a couple of minutes, and 11 managed to revive her. But when 11 tried to find Max in her mind, she wasn't there. Vol 1 finally explains why. Holly, after being taken to the Upside Down, wakes up in what appears to be a safe place. She's in the Creel house, but it's not the decaying nightmare version. From the Upside Down, it's clean, warm, almost inviting. And there's a man there who calls himself Mr. Whatsit. He's kind to her. He tells her to make herself at home, that her parents will join them soon, once they're healed. He even asks her to get the mail, and inside she finds a cassette and a boombox. It's all very domestic and seemingly harmless. But it's not real. Mr. Whatsit is actually Henry Creel, a young version of Vecna, and Holly isn't in a real place at all. She's trapped inside Vecna's mind. Specifically, she's in his memories. It's a prison of his making, a world built from 1,000 different memories, all stitched together. Her body is in the Upside Down, connected to those tendrils, but her consciousness is in this alternate reality. And Max is there too. When Holly ventures to some rocks outside the Creel house, she finds a note supposedly from Henry asking her to meet him there. Instead, she finds Max. Max explains everything. She's been trapped in Vecna's mind since her attack in Season 4. She thought she was dead, but she woke up in his memories. She cycled through them, seeing the day 11 blasted Vecna into the Upside Down, seeing his high school years from 30 years prior. She appeared in all these different moments from his past, trying to find a way back to Hawkins. At one point, Max nearly escaped. Lucas was playing Running Up That Hill next to her comatose body in the hospital, and she could hear it. She saw the portal opening, saw her chance, but the song stopped. The portal closed, and Vecna chased her. But whilst running, Max realised something crucial. Vecna wouldn't go near the rocks. There's something about that specific location, those rocks or that cave, that terrifies him. So Max has been hiding there ever since, waiting for an opportunity to escape. When she finds Holly, they team up. Max has a plan, but they need more time. So she sends Holly back to Mr. Whatsit and tells her to pretend like nothing's happened. They can't let Vecna know that Holly's aware of the truth, not yet. And that's where their storyline ends in Vol 1, with both of them trapped in Vecna's mind, biding their time. It's such a clever way to bring Max back into the story. Sadie Sink has said her fate is complicated, and now we understand why. She's not dead, but she's not really alive either. She's stuck in this liminal space, and whether she can fully escape remains to be seen. Meanwhile, 11 and Hopper have their own mission. They break into the military's Upside Down facility, trying to find out what Dr. K is hiding behind a secret door. They suspect it might be Vecna himself, which would explain why the military is so desperate to keep 11 away. But Hopper has an extreme backup plan. He's wearing a bomb vest. If Vecna is behind that door, Hopper is willing to kill himself, to take Vecna out and save everyone else. He says an emotional goodbye to 11, who is absolutely distraught, and walks into the room holding the detonator. The scene cuts away, and we're left not knowing whether Hopper survives. But here's the thing. He doesn't find Vecna. He finds Carly, 8, one of the other children from the Hawkins lab experiments. Carly was last seen in Season 2 when 11 went to find her in Chicago. She has the power to create illusions, to make people see things that aren't there, and now she's being held prisoner by the military in the Upside Down. Her return is massive. Linnea Berthelsen is back, and according to the Duffers, 8's role in the final episodes is significant. Having her, 11, and now Will with powers sets up this potential team of psychic heroes, all fighting together. Millie Bobby Brown has said that 11 is more locked in than ever this season. She has a goal, a mission, and nothing is going to stop her. The reunion with Carly could mean a power boost, or it could mean a shared sacrifice down the line. We'll have to wait and see. The rest of the group is scattered but united in their goal. Mike is stepping up as a leader again. According to Finn Wolfhard and the Duffers, we're seeing a more confident, more mature version of Mike than we've seen since Season 1. He's rallying people, making decisions, and taking charge. Robin and Will have this beautiful bonding moment where Robin talks about identity, and being true to yourself, which helps Will find his strength. Joyce is right there in the thick of it, and there's this brief moment where she locks eyes with Vecna. The significance of that isn't clear yet, but some fans think it might hint at a deeper connection. Erica and a kid named Derek Turnbow, who's actually one of Holly's school bullies, become unlikely allies. They help the group identify which children Vecna is targeting next. It's this whole coordinated effort to stay one step ahead of Vecna, but by the end of episode 4, it's clear they've lost this round. Vecna has his 12 children, including Holly. He's back, he's more powerful than ever, and his plan is in motion. And that's where Vol 1 leaves us. No main character deaths, which is surprising. The Duffers confirmed in interviews that they wanted Vecna taking the children to be the low point, the devastating moment, rather than killing off a beloved character in the first batch of episodes. But they've also said that Season 5 has the most violent death of any season, so Vol 2 and 3 are definitely going to hurt. So that's the setup. Hawkins is under siege, the military is hunting 11, Vecna has his army of children, Will has powers, Max and Holly are trapped in Vecna's mind, Carly is back, and Hopper's fate was left on a cliffhanger. It's a lot. The Duffers really set the stage for an absolutely massive finale. Now this is the part that's going to hurt. Let's talk about character deaths. The Duffers have made it pretty clear that not everyone's making it out of Season 5 alive. Matt Duffer told The Times that Season 5 is not as violent as Season 4, but it has the most violent death of any season. That's a very specific thing to say, and it's been keeping fans up at night ever since. We're talking about a death that's worse than Billy getting impaled by the Mind Flayer, worse than Eddie getting torn apart by Demobats. That's a high bar, and honestly, I'm not sure I am emotionally prepared for whatever they've got planned. Stranger Things has never shied away from killing characters. We've lost Barb, Bob, Alexei, Billy, and Eddie over the years. Some of those deaths were shocking, some were heartbreaking, and all of them served the story in important ways. But this is the final season. The stakes are higher than they've ever been, and the Duffers know that a satisfying ending might require sacrifice. The question isn't really whether someone dies, it's who and how many. So let's go through the major characters and rank them by how likely they are to die. I've looked at the evidence, the theories, the patterns from previous seasons, and the cryptic things actors have said in interviews. Some of these predictions are going to hurt, so fair warning. Starting with the absolute certainties. Vecna is dying. There's no question about it. Henry Creel, whatever you want to call him, he's not making it out of this season. The only real question is how he dies, and whether his defeat requires a sacrifice from our heroes. Every big bad in Stranger Things has been defeated by the end of their season, and Vecna is no exception. The Mind Flayer might be the true villain, which we'll get into later, but Vecna himself is absolutely getting taken down. Jamie Campbell Bower has done incredible work bringing this character to life, but his story ends in Season 5. That's a guarantee. Now for the characters we actually care about, things get complicated. Steve Harrington. Oh boy, this one hurts to even talk about. Steve is probably the character I'm most worried about, and I think loads of other fans feel the same way. From a narrative standpoint, Steve dying makes perfect sense. He's had one of the most remarkable character arcs in the entire series. He started as this douchebag jock in Season 1, and he's become this lovable, protective hero who would do anything for his friends. That kind of redemption arc, it's basically begging for a tragic, sacrificial ending. Think about it. Steve's whole thing is protecting people. He's the babysitter. He's the one who puts himself in danger so the kids can get to safety. He's done it again and again, and a death where he sacrifices himself to save the group would complete that arc. It would be devastating, but it would also feel earned. Plus, it would definitively end the love triangle between him, Nancy, and Jonathan. No more will they, won't they? No more awkward tension. Just a heartbreaking conclusion to Steve's story. The evidence from the trailers doesn't help ease my concerns. There's this clip of Dustin hugging Steve, and both of them look absolutely wrecked. Dustin's already lost Eddie, and the idea of him losing Steve too is almost too much to bear. Joe Keery has been pretty cryptic in interviews about the finale, which is never a good sign. Actors tend to get emotional when they're talking about their character dying, and whilst Joe's kept things professional, there's something in the way he talks about the ending that makes me nervous. I want to believe Steve survives. I really do. I want him to get his happy ending. Maybe with Robin as his platonic soulmate. Maybe even finding someone who appreciates him for who he is now. But if I'm being honest with myself, I think the odds are against him. Steve Harrington is in serious danger, and I hate it. Will Byers is the other character who feels like he's on borrowed time. The full circle narrative is just too perfect. You were the first, Vecna said to him. Will was the first victim, the first one taken to the Upside Down, and his kidnapping set everything in motion. For his story to end with him being the key to Vecna's defeat, possibly sacrificing himself in the process, would tie the entire series together. It's poetic, it's tragic, and it feels very much like something the Duffers would do. Will's new powers make this even more likely. In episode 4, when he destroys those Demogorgons, the visual is nearly identical to how Vecna kills people. He raises his hand, channels that power, and just obliterates them. The implication is pretty clear. Will is using Vecna's own powers against him. But what if that connection goes both ways? What if defeating Vecna requires Will to channel so much power that it destroys him too? It's the kind of sacrifice that would devastate Joyce, Mike, and everyone who loves him, but it would also feel like the right ending for his character. Noah Schnapp has been really emotional in interviews about the final season. He's talked about how Will has grown, how he's finally accepted himself and found his strength. That's beautiful, but it also sounds like the kind of thing actors say when their character is about to die. The Duffers have said Will's arc is central to the ending, and whilst that could mean he survives and gets a happy conclusion, it could just as easily mean he's the one who has to make the ultimate sacrifice. There's also this theory floating around that Will might die when Vecna and the Demogorgons are finally defeated, almost like they're all connected and taking one down takes them all down. Or that 11 might have to use too much power, trying to seal the Upside Down and essentially disintegrate, taking Will with her since they're both psychically connected now. Reddit is full of variations on this theme, and honestly, most of them are heartbreaking. I don't want Will to die. He's been through so much already, but if the story demands it, if his sacrifice is what saves everyone else, I think the Duffers will go there. 11 is a complicated one. On the one hand, she's the main character. Millie Bobby Brown is the face of Stranger Things. Killing off 11 would be a massive, shocking move that would absolutely devastate the audience. On the other hand, this is the final season, and the Duffers have never been afraid of making bold choices. The most popular theory about 11's fate involves her sacrificing herself to seal the Upside Down permanently. The idea is that closing the gates for good requires an enormous amount of power, more than 11 has ever used before, and she essentially disintegrates in the process. It's similar to what happened to Iron Man in Avengers, Endgame, and given how much the Duffers love the MCU, it's not outside the realm of possibility. But there's another theory that's even more heartbreaking. Some fans think 11 might have to reset everyone's memories of the Upside Down in order to strip it of its power. It's very Spider-Man, No Way Home. She would defeat Vecna, close the gates, but in doing so, everyone she loves would forget about her. She'd have to watch them live their lives from afar, unable to be part of their world anymore. The Duffers have mentioned being inspired by Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and that film has a similar bittersweet ending. It would be a way to keep 11 alive, but still give her a tragic conclusion. Millie Bobby Brown has said that 11 is more locked in than ever this season, that she has a mission and won't let anything stop her. That determination could lead to her survival, or it could lead to her demise. The fact that Carly is back in the picture might mean 11 gets a power boost and survives, or it might mean the two of them make a combined sacrifice. It's genuinely hard to predict. What I will say is this: if 11 dies, it needs to mean something. It can't be a throwaway death or a shock value moment. It has to serve the story, and it has to give her character a proper send-off. She's earned that much. Nancy Wheeler has become a lot more likely to die after watching Vol 1. She's taken on this leadership role, coordinating the group's efforts and making critical decisions. She's at the forefront of the fight, and in stories like this, leaders often don't make it out alive. The Wheeler family also hasn't experienced a major loss yet. Holly's been kidnapped, Karen and Ted are injured, but no one's actually died. Some fans think it's the Wheelers' turn to suffer a real tragedy, and Nancy is the most high-profile target. There's this shot in the trailer of Nancy crying while cleaning blood off her hands. It could be anyone's blood. It could be Ted's, it could be Steve's, it could be Jonathan's. But some fans think it might be someone else's blood because she's the one who got injured and she's cleaning up before she succumbs to her wounds. It's dark, but it's possible. Nancy dying would devastate Mike. It would affect Steve and Jonathan deeply, and it would fundamentally change the dynamic of the group. Natalia Dyer has been pretty quiet in interviews, which could mean nothing or could mean everything. What makes this tricky is that Nancy is so competent. She's survived so much already. For her to die now would feel random unless it's a deliberate sacrifice. And if it is a sacrifice, it would need to be for something monumentally important. I'm not entirely convinced Nancy dies, but I'm also not convinced she's safe. She's somewhere in the middle, and that uncertainty is nerve-wracking. Hopper is another character who's hard to predict. On the one hand, he already died once at the end of Season 3, and bringing him back just to kill him again feels repetitive. On the other hand, the bomb vest cliffhanger in Episode 4 is pretty ominous. David Harbour himself has said that death grazed Hopper at the end of Season 3, and maybe this time it won't miss. Hopper is the protective father figure. He's the one who would absolutely sacrifice himself for 11, for Joyce, for the kids. And in stories like this, protective father figures often don't make it to the end. It's a trope, but it's a trope because it works emotionally. Hopper dying to save everyone else would be heartbreaking, but it would also feel fitting for his character. The counter-argument is that Hopper has suffered enough. He lost his daughter Sarah, he spent months being tortured in a Russian prison, he's been separated from the people he loves over and over again. Giving him a happy ending with Joyce and 11, letting him finally have the family he's always wanted, would be a more satisfying conclusion than another tragic death. The Duffers could go either way with this, and honestly, I'm not sure which ending I'd prefer. Jonathan Byers is in a weird position. He's been somewhat sidelined in recent seasons, existing mostly within Nancy's narrative. His character arc has been about figuring out his future, whether he goes to college with Nancy or stays to help his family. That's important on a personal level, but it doesn't have the same weight as some of the other characters' arcs. And that makes him potentially expendable from a storytelling perspective. If Jonathan dies, it would devastate Nancy. It would give her arc in the final episodes a real emotional punch. Plus, there's been talk about Jonathan wanting to propose to Nancy, and in fiction, making plans for the future is often a death sentence. Charlie Heaton has been relatively quiet during press, which could mean his character's fate is being kept under wraps. The Byers family has already suffered so much, though. Joyce has been through hell multiple times over, and Will has been traumatized since Season 1. Killing Jonathan on top of everything else feels like tragedy porn. Then again, the Duffers have never been afraid to pile on the suffering when it serves the story. Jonathan's not safe, but he's also not the most obvious choice for a major death. Ted Wheeler is probably the easiest death to predict. He's already in an induced coma after the Demogorgon attack in Episode 2. His injuries are severe, and he's not exactly a central character. Killing Ted would raise the stakes without touching any of the core group. It would give the Wheelers a genuine loss. It would affect Mike, Nancy, and Holly, but it wouldn't fundamentally change the show's dynamic. Joe Trest, who plays Ted, has had a minimal role throughout the series. He's comic relief mostly, the oblivious dad who has no idea what's actually happening in Hawkins. Giving him a heroic death, where his attempt to protect his family with just a golf club leads to his demise, would be a way to honour the character without derailing the main plot. It's sad, but it's not devastating. And in a season where the Duffers have promised the most violent death ever, Ted feels like a likely candidate. Karen Wheeler is in a similar boat, though her survival seems slightly more likely than Ted's. She's in the hospital with throat injuries, unable to speak, but she's in stable condition by the end of Vol 1. Cara Buono has hinted in interviews that Karen has a more surprising arc this season, which could mean she does something significant before the end. If Karen's just a suburban mum, she's probably safe. But if the show reveals a bigger connection to the plot, something we haven't seen yet, then she becomes more expendable. There's also the possibility of a protective mother sacrifice. If Holly's in danger in the final episodes, Karen might throw herself into harm's way to save her daughter. It would be heartbreaking, especially for Mike and Nancy, but it would also feel true to her character. She's been protective of her kids throughout the series, even if she hasn't known the full extent of what they've been facing. Murray Bauman is the definition of a comic relief side character, and those don't tend to survive final seasons. Murray's been around since season 2, and he's been brilliant. Brett Gelman brings so much energy and humour to the role. But Murray doesn't have deep narrative ties to the core group. He's friends with Joyce and Hopper. He's helped the kids on various missions, but his death wouldn't devastate the main characters in the way that losing Steve or Will would. Killing Murray would be a way to shock the audience and raise the stakes without completely wrecking the emotional core of the show. It would be sad, it would be unexpected, but it wouldn't derail anyone's character arc. He's the kind of character the Duffers might kill to remind us that no one is completely safe, even the people we've grown to love. That said, Murray has made it through 3 seasons already, which is unusual for his archetype. Comic relief characters usually don't last that long. Maybe the Duffers have a soft spot for him. Maybe Brett Gelman's performance has earned Murray a survival pass. But if I had to bet, I'd say Murray is at medium-high risk. Now for the characters who are probably safe, or at least safer than the others. Mike Wheeler is almost certainly surviving. There's leaked epilogue footage floating around online that shows Mike sitting on a bench with Hopper, having what looks like a heart-to-heart conversation. If that footage is legitimate, and most people think it is, then Mike makes it to the end. Plus, Finn Wolfhard has talked in interviews about Mike becoming a leader again, stepping up in a way he hasn't since season 1. That kind of character arc usually ends with growth and survival, not death. Mike is the heart of the party. He's the one who brought everyone together in season 1, and killing him would fundamentally break the group. The Duffers could do it for shock value, but it would be a massive, controversial move. I think Mike is safe, and I'm genuinely relieved about that. Dustin Henderson is another character who feels relatively safe. He's already lost Eddie in season 4, which was absolutely devastating for him. Giving Dustin another major loss, especially if Steve dies, would feel like piling on. There's such a thing as tragedy porn, where you hurt a character so much that it stops being meaningful and just becomes cruel. Dustin's been through enough. Gaten Matarazzo has been his usual enthusiastic self during press, which suggests his character survives. Actors tend to be more subdued when they're hiding a character death, and Gaten doesn't seem like he's hiding anything. Dustin is the comic relief, who's also the emotional heart of the group in a lot of ways, and I think the Duffers will let him have a happy ending. Or at least a bittersweet one, where he's alive but scarred by everything he's been through. Lucas Sinclair's fate is tied to Max's fate in a lot of ways. Lucas has spent all of Vol 1 desperately trying to wake Max up, sitting by her hospital bed, playing her favourite song over and over again. If Max dies, Lucas is destroyed. If Max survives, Lucas gets a chance at happiness. Killing them both would be excessive. The Duffers tend to balance their tragedy with hope, and I think at least one of them makes it out alive. Caleb McLaughlin has talked in interviews about Lucas's arc being about completion, about finishing what he started. That sounds like survivor talk to me. Lucas might lose Max, which would be heartbreaking, but I think Lucas himself survives the series. Erica Sinclair is definitely surviving. She's too young, she's comic relief, and killing her would serve no narrative purpose. The Duffers introduced her in season 3, and she's been earning her place in the group ever since, but she's not central enough to the plot for her death. To have the impact the Duffers are clearly going for, Erica is safe, and I'm glad about that. Joyce Byers is a tough one to call. Winona Ryder is one of the biggest names in the cast, and Joyce has been through absolute hell since season 1. She's lost Bob. She's had to watch Will suffer repeatedly. She's been separated from her kids and from Hopper. By all rights, she deserves a happy ending. She deserves to be with Hopper, to have her family safe, to finally rest. But there's that moment in episode 4 where Joyce and Vecna lock eyes. It's brief, but it's there, and some fans think it might be significant. Is Vecna targeting Joyce specifically? Does he have some connection to her that we don't know about yet? Or was it just a random moment in the chaos of battle? If the Duffers kill Joyce, it would be shocking and heartbreaking. It would devastate Hopper, Will, and Jonathan, but it would also feel like tragedy porn. Joyce has been the emotional anchor of the show since the beginning, and taking her away in the final episodes would leave a massive void. I don't think they'll do it, but I also can't completely rule it out. Robin Buckley is probably safe. Maya Hawke's performance has made Robin one of the most beloved characters in the series. She's the comedic relief, who's also smart, brave, and deeply caring. She's survived 2 seasons already, which is a good sign for characters in her archetype. Plus, her bond with Will in Vol 1, where she talks to him about identity and being true to yourself, feels like the kind of supportive role that pays off with survival, not death. Robin is also LGBTQ+ representation on the show, and killing her would be controversial. The Duffers would be accused of the bury your gays trope, and I don't think they want to deal with that backlash. Robin's probably making it to the end, possibly with Steve if he survives, or mourning Steve if he doesn't. Max Mayfield is complicated because she's technically already died once. She's in a coma, trapped in Vecna's mindscape, and her fate is tied directly to whether the heroes can rescue her. Sadie Sink has been cryptic in interviews, saying Max's situation is complicated and that fans will understand more once they see the full season. That doesn't sound like she's definitively dying, but it also doesn't sound like she's getting a straightforward, happy ending. The most likely scenario is that Max is rescued from Vecna's mind, but doesn't fully recover. Maybe she wakes up, but has lasting trauma or physical injuries. Maybe she stays in Vecna's mindscape permanently, existing in this in-between state. Or maybe she fully escapes and gets to be with Lucas again, which is what we're all hoping for. Max has suffered enough. She deserves to survive. Holly Wheeler just became a major character, so killing her would be a waste. Nell Fisher was specifically recast to give Holly a bigger role, and the Duffers have said her arc is important to the full season. She needs to be rescued from Vecna's mindscape, and that rescue is probably a key part of the final episodes. Holly's too young and too newly important to kill off. She's safe. So there you have it. My death predictions range from almost certain, like Steve and Will, to almost certainly safe, like Mike and Dustin. The reality is that the Duffers love to subvert expectations. Maybe everyone I think is doomed actually survives. And the characters I think are safe are the ones who die. We've seen them do it before. Eddie's death in season 4 was shocking because it happened to a character who felt like he might survive. What I do know is that the most violent death of any season is coming, and it's going to hurt. Whether it's one major character or multiple losses, the Duffers are going to make us cry. They've promised that much. And whilst I'm dreading it, I also trust them to make those deaths mean something. Stranger Things has always balanced its darkness with hope, its tragedy with triumph. I have to believe that whatever happens, the ending will feel earned. But deaths aside, let's talk about the villain himself, because there's a lot more to Vecna's plan than just collecting children. Vecna's endgame is properly disturbing when you actually think about it. In episode 4, when he's face to face with Will, he explains exactly what he's doing. He needs 12 children. Specifically, he needs children who are, in his words, weak in body and mind, perfect vessels. He wants to use them to reshape the world, and whilst the Duffers haven't fully explained what that means yet, the implications are horrific. Holly Wheeler is one of those 12 children. So is Derek Turnbow, the school bully who becomes an unlikely ally to the group. And there are 10 others, all around the same age, all taken from Hawkins. Vecna's been grooming them in a way. He appears to them in different forms. To Holly, he's Mr. Whatsit, this friendly man who offers her safety and comfort. He's not showing up as the grotesque monster we know him to be. He's using his human form, Henry Creel, to gain their trust before revealing his true nature. So what does he actually want with them? The theories on this are all over the place, but most of them are pretty dark. The most popular theory is that Vecna is building an army of psychic children. He saw what 11 could do, what the Hawkins lab experiments created, and now he wants his own version. 12 children with powers, all under his control, all connected to the Upside Down. They'd be extensions of him, like the Demogorgons and the Mind Flayer, but more intelligent, more capable. It's basically the Hawkins lab program, but twisted and corrupted. Instead of Dr. Brenner's experiments, you'd have Vecna's vessels. Another theory is that Vecna needs these children to create new gates or portals. The rifts that opened at the end of Season 4 are massive, but maybe they're not enough for what he's planning. Maybe he needs 12 specific points across Hawkins, or even across the world, and each child becomes a living gate. Their bodies in the Upside Down, their minds trapped in his memories, and through them the Upside Down spreads everywhere. It would turn the entire world into what Hawkins has become, a nightmare dimension bleeding into reality. There's also this theory that Vecna is trying to replace the original Hawkins lab children. 11, Carly, and the others were taken and experimented on by Dr. Brenner. Most of them died or disappeared. Vecna might be attempting to recreate that group, but with children he controls from the start. No rebellion, no 11 breaking free and blasting him into another dimension. Just pure, obedient power under his command. What makes this extra creepy is the possession angle. Is Vecna transforming these children into something else entirely, or is he just possessing them whilst keeping their bodies alive? The tendrils we see connected to Holly in the Upside Down look similar to what happened to Will in Season 1. Will was being used as a host, drained of life, to feed the Upside Down. If that's what's happening to these 12 children, they might not survive even if the heroes defeat Vecna. Will is key to understanding all of this. Vecna said, "You were the first, Will was the template." Everything Vecna learned from taking Will, from connecting him to the Upside Down and the Mind Flayer, he's now applying to these 12 children. Will survived his ordeal, but he's been changed by it. He has powers now. He can sense the Upside Down, and he's connected to Vecna in ways that even he doesn't fully understand. If Will is the prototype, these 12 children are the finished product. The Duffer Brothers have promised that answers about Vecna's plan will come in the final episode. They've been very careful not to spoil exactly what he's doing, which makes sense. It's probably the biggest reveal of the season. But whatever it is, it's going to be massive. You don't build up 12 kidnapped children, all connected to the villain, all trapped in his mind, without that being central to the climax. Now, speaking of the villain, we need to talk about the Mind Flayer. Because here's the thing, Vecna might not actually be the final boss. This is probably the biggest unanswered question in the entire series. What is the relationship between Vecna and the Mind Flayer? Is Vecna in control, of the Mind Flayer, or is it the other way around? And depending on the answer, the entire story changes. For most of the series, we thought the Mind Flayer was the main threat. It was this massive, spider-like shadow creature that could possess people, control demogorgons, and spread the Upside Down's influence. In Season 2, it possessed Will. In Season 3, it possessed Billy and created that flesh monster. It was terrifying, and it felt like the ultimate evil. Then Season 4 revealed Vecna, and suddenly the hierarchy got complicated. Vecna, or Henry Creel, or One, was the first child in Dr. Brenner's experiments. He had powers before any of the others, powers he was born with, not given. He could move things with his mind, he could see into people's thoughts and traumatic memories, and he used those abilities to kill his family when he was just a child. Dr. Brenner took him in, studied him, tried to control him, but Henry was too powerful. When 11 was introduced to the lab, Henry manipulated her into removing the device that suppressed his powers. Then he went on a massacre, killing almost everyone in the lab. 11 fought back and accidentally sent him into another dimension. That dimension was what we now call the Upside Down. But here's where the Broadway play, The First Shadow, adds crucial context. The play is set in 1959 and follows a young Henry Creel in Hawkins. It shows that Henry's family moved to Hawkins because of strange occurrences, and Henry himself becomes connected to something called Dimension X. According to the play, Henry visits a cave in Nevada and gets transported to Dimension X, where he encounters the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer corrupts him, changes him, drives him to fulfill its desires when he returns to the real world. So the Mind Flayer existed before Vecna. It was already in Dimension X, this ancient, malevolent force, and it used Henry as a vessel. When 11 blasted Henry into the Upside Down in 1979, he didn't create that dimension. He landed in a place that was already corrupted by the Mind Flayer, and over time, he transformed into the creature we know as Vecna. This changes everything. If the Mind Flayer is the true villain, if it's been manipulating events all along, then Vecna is actually a victim. He's still responsible for the horrible things he's done, but he's not the source of the evil. He's a puppet, and that raises this fascinating possibility. What if Vecna helps the heroes defeat the Mind Flayer in the end? The Duffer Brothers confirmed to Variety that the connection between Vecna and the Mind Flayer is a question that will be answered in the final episode. They've been sitting on this reveal for years, carefully building toward it. The 25-page mythology document they wrote for Netflix back in Season 1 apparently contains the full explanation of what the Upside Down is and how these forces relate to each other. We're finally going to get those answers. There's this theory that Vecna realizes he's been used by the Mind Flayer and turns against it. Maybe 11 and Will together aren't strong enough to defeat both threats, so Vecna has to make a choice. Does he continue serving the Mind Flayer, or does he rebel? It would be a very Stranger Things move to give the villain a redemption arc right at the end, not to excuse his actions, but to complicate them. Henry Creel was a child when the Mind Flayer corrupted him. He's a monster now, nobody started as a victim. Or maybe the Mind Flayer is the real final boss, and defeating Vecna is only the first part of the battle. Once Vecna's gone, the heroes realize the Upside Down is still spreading. The Mind Flayer is still out there, and they have to find a way to stop it. That would explain why the Duffers have been so careful about how they describe the ending. It's not just about defeating one villain, it's about confronting the source of all the darkness they've been fighting since Season 1. The Mind Flayer's presence has been felt throughout the series, even when it wasn't the active threat. At the end of Season 2, it's watching the snowball dance from the Upside Down. In Season 3, it's building that flesh monster and trying to open the gate. In Season 4, it's connected to Vecna, but also seems to have its own agenda. It's this looming cosmic horror that's bigger than any one person or creature. And if that's what the heroes have to face in the final episodes, it's going to take everyone working together. Loads of fans on Reddit have been theorizing that the Upside Down itself is connected to the Mind Flayer, that the entire dimension is essentially the Mind Flayer's domain, and Vecna is just one inhabitant of it. If you think about the Upside Down as a living thing, as an extension of the Mind Flayer's will, then closing the gates permanently might require destroying the Mind Flayer itself, and that's a much bigger challenge than just killing Vecna. Let's talk about Vecna's appearance in Vol 1, because he's changed. In Season 4, he was already horrifying. This twisted, vine-covered creature with exposed flesh and that creepy voice. But in Vol 1, he looks different. Fans have described him as thinner and spinier. His design has evolved, and it's not just for show. There's a reason he looks more monstrous now. At the end of Season 4, Nancy, Steve, and Robin attacked Vecna at the Creel house. They set him on fire, shot him, did everything they could to kill him. They failed, obviously, but they definitely injured him. Vecna was wounded, and he retreated to heal and regroup. The question is, how did he heal? And more importantly, did he come back stronger? One theory that's gaining traction is that Vecna killed Carly and absorbed her powers. Carly, or 8, has the ability to create illusions. She can make people see things that aren't there, hallucinate entire scenarios. That's very similar to what Vecna does when he traps people in their traumatic memories. He shows them visions, makes them relive their worst moments, breaks them psychologically before killing them. If Vecna absorbed Carly's abilities, it would explain how he's gotten even better at manipulating minds. But Vol 1 reveals that Carly's alive. Hopper and 11 find her in the military facility, held prisoner. So that theory is debunked, at least partially. Carly's alive, which is great news. But it also raises the question of what the military was doing with her. Were they studying her powers, trying to use her against Vecna, or were they keeping her locked up because they saw her as a threat? Vecna's entrance in Episode 4 is designed to show just how powerful he's become. The Duffer Brothers said they were inspired by Darth Vader's entrance in Rogue One, and you can feel that influence. When Vecna walks through the gate from the Upside Down, soldiers immediately open fire. They hit him with everything they've got. Bullets, flames, explosives. And he doesn't even flinch. He just raises his arms and turns their weapons against them. Fire flows backward. Grenades explode in their hands. It's effortless for him. Ross Duffer said they wanted the audience to feel the power of Vecna in that moment, to understand how scary he is. And it works. This isn't a villain who can be defeated with conventional weapons. The military, for all their resources and technology, are completely useless against him. It's going to take something much more powerful to bring him down. So where has that power come from? If he didn't absorb Carly's abilities, what made him stronger between seasons? The most likely explanation is that he's been feeding off the Upside Down itself. The rifts that opened at the end of Season 4 created a direct connection between Hawkins and the Upside Down. That connection has been growing, spreading, and Vecna has been drawing energy from it. Every day that passes, every bit of Hawkins that gets corrupted makes him more powerful. There's also the children. If Vecna's plan involves using those 12 kids as vessels or conduits, maybe he's already started drawing power from them. They're connected to him through those tendrils, their minds trapped in his memories. That kind of connection could be feeding him, making him stronger while simultaneously weakening them. Whatever the source, Vecna's more dangerous now than he's ever been, and that makes his weaknesses all the more important. Max discovered something crucial whilst trapped in Vecna's mindscape. There's a place he won't go, a cave or a set of rocks, somewhere in his memories that absolutely terrifies him. Max stumbled onto it whilst running from him, and she realised he wouldn't follow. He stopped at the edge, refused to get close, so she's been hiding there ever since, using it as a sanctuary. Why is Vecna afraid of this place? What's so significant about these rocks? The most popular theory connects back to the Broadway play. In the first shadow, young Henry Creel visits a cave in Nevada. That cave is where he first encounters Dimension X and the Mind Flayer. It's the place where his corruption begins, where he stops being a troubled child and starts becoming a monster. If that cave exists in Vecna's memories, if it's the location where he lost his humanity, it makes sense that he'd avoid it. It's the source of his trauma, the moment everything changed. Another theory is that the cave represents the boundary of the Mind Flayer's influence. Maybe there's something about that specific location, some natural property or energy that repels the upside down. If the Mind Flayer can't reach into that cave, and Vecna is connected to the Mind Flayer, then Vecna can't go there either. It would be a natural safe zone, the one place in his mindscape where his control is weak. There's also the possibility that the cave is connected to the wall that Hopper and Eleven discovered in the Upside Down. Vol 1 revealed that there's a barrier centered on Hawkins' lab, a wall that seems to mark the limit of the Upside Down. Beyond that wall might be pure Dimension X, untouched by Vecna's influence. If the cave in Vecna's memories corresponds to that wall in the physical Upside Down, it could represent the edge of his power, a place he literally cannot access. Whatever the explanation, the cave is going to be important. Max is using it to stay hidden, and when Holly joins her, they're both protected there. It's the one advantage they have against Vecna, and it's probably going to play a role in his ultimate defeat. Maybe the heroes realize they need to lure Vecna to that location, or maybe they discover that the cave holds the key to breaking his connection to the Mind Flayer. The Broadway play's connections to Season 5 are fascinating because they're giving us context the show itself hasn't fully explored yet. The play is canon, according to the Duffers, which means the events we see on stage actually happened in this universe. Young Henry's journey into Dimension X, his encounters with the Mind Flayer, his corruption, all of that is part of Vecna's origin story. And if you know that backstory, certain moments in Season 5 hit differently. When Vecna touches Will's face and says, "You were the first," there's a gentleness to it that's unsettling. Jamie Campbell Bower has talked in interviews about playing Vecna as broken rather than purely evil. There's humanity left in there, buried under layers of corruption and trauma. The question is whether that humanity can be reached, or whether it's too far gone. There's one moment in Vol 1 that a lot of fans are talking about. When Vecna walks through the gate in Episode 4, Joyce is there with the group, and for just a second, Vecna and Joyce lock eyes. It's brief, easy to miss, but it's there. Some fans think it's nothing, just a random moment in the chaos, but others think it's significant. Does Vecna have a connection to Joyce that we don't know about? Did he know her back when he was Henry Creel before everything went wrong? Or is it something deeper? Joyce has been the emotional anchor of the show since the beginning. She's the one who never gave up on Will, who fought through impossible odds to save her son. If Vecna recognizes that determination, that love, it might remind him of something he lost. A connection to humanity that he can't quite suppress. It's also possible that Vecna is targeting Joyce specifically. He took Will first, and now he's orchestrating this whole plan with the 12 children. If his goal is to hurt the people who've been fighting against him, going after Joyce would be a devastating move. She's already lost Bob, she's been separated from her family multiple times, and she's been through absolute hell. Losing her would break Hopper, Will, and Jonathan. It would be the kind of violent, shocking death the Duffers have promised, but I don't think that's what the eye contact means. I think it's more about recognition. Vecna seeing in Joyce the kind of fierce, protective love that he never had. His mother didn't protect him from his father. Dr. Brenner used him as an experiment. The Mind Flayer corrupted him. No one saved Henry Creel when he needed saving. And now he's looking at Joyce, who saved her son from the exact same fate. And maybe there's a flicker of something there. Regret, envy, recognition of what he could have been if things had been different. Jamie Campbell Bower's performance is doing so much heavy lifting here. He's playing a character who's both a monster and a victim, and that's a difficult balance. Vecna is responsible for horrific acts. He's killed innocent people, he's tormented children, he's trying to destroy the world, but he's also a product of abuse, experimentation, and supernatural corruption. The Duffers aren't excusing his actions, but they are complicating them, and that makes him a much more interesting villain than just pure evil. So how does Vecna actually get defeated? There are loads of theories, and most of them involve some combination of 11, Will, and Carly working together. The most straightforward theory is that Will uses his channeled powers against Vecna. He's connected to Vecna through the hive mind, and he can tap into that connection to fight back. In episode 4, we saw him destroy Demogorgons by channeling Vecna's own power. If he can do that on a larger scale, if he can somehow turn Vecna's power against him completely, that might be enough to defeat him. But it would probably require Will to sacrifice himself in the process, channeling so much power that it destroys them both. Another theory is that 11 and Will combine their abilities. 11 has raw power, the ability to move things, to fight, to blast enemies into other dimensions. Will has the connection, the ability to see through the eyes of upside-down creatures and manipulate them from within. Together, they'd be unstoppable. But again, the cost might be too high. Using that much power could kill one or both of them. Adding Carly into the mix creates even more possibilities. Carly can create illusions, make people see things that aren't there. What if she makes Vecna see something? His mother, his sister, the moment before he was corrupted. What if she forces him to confront his own trauma in the same way he's been forcing others to confront theirs? It would be poetic justice, and it might be enough to weaken him so that 11 and Will can finish the job. There's also the full party theory. The Duffers have emphasized repeatedly that everyone needs to come together for the final battle. 11, Will, Kaylee, Mike, Dustin, Lucas, Max, Steve, Nancy, Robin, Jonathan, Joyce, Hopper, everyone. Each person has a role to play, and it's only by working together that they can win. That's very much in keeping with the show's themes. Stranger Things has always been about the power of friendship, of community, of people coming together to face impossible odds. The final battle should reflect that. Then there's the time travel theory, which has been gaining loads of traction since Vol 1. Mr. Clark's class had a brief discussion about wormholes, and that's not the kind of detail the Duffers include without reason. What if the heroes figure out how to go back in time to November 6th, 1983, the day Will was taken? What if they can stop Vecna's plan before it ever starts? It would be very Avengers, Endgame, and the Duffers have said they love the MCU, so it's not outside the realm of possibility. But time travel creates all sorts of paradoxes. If they stop Will from being taken, do the events of the show never happen? Do they lose all their memories, all their growth, all the relationships they've built? It's tricky, and the Duffers would have to be really careful about how they handle it. My guess is that if time travel happens, it's not about changing the past. It's about closing the loop, about ensuring that the Upside Down can never threaten anyone again. The final option is that Vecna isn't the real enemy. The Mind Flayer is, and defeating Vecna is only the first step. Once he's gone, the heroes realize the Upside Down is still there, still spreading, still corrupted. They have to find a way to destroy the Mind Flayer itself, to cut off the source of all this evil. That would explain why the Duffers have been so secretive about the ending. It's not what anyone expects. Personally, I think the ending involves multiple sacrifices and a bittersweet victory. Vecna dies probably through a combination of Will, 11, and Carly's powers. The Mind Flayer gets defeated but not destroyed entirely. The gates close but at a cost. Some heroes don't make it out, others survive but are fundamentally changed. And the world moves on, scarred but healing. That's the kind of ending that would feel true to Stranger Things. Not a complete tragedy where everyone dies, but not a fairy tale where everyone lives happily ever after either. Something in between. Something that acknowledges the cost of fighting evil while still offering hope for the future. Speaking of answers, let's talk about the Upside Down itself, because after 5 seasons, we still don't really know what it is. Vol 1 gave us some new clues that are pretty massive, if you know what to look for. The biggest one is the wall. Hopper and Eleven discover it during their infiltration of the military facility in the Upside Down. It's this mysterious barrier, and it's centered on Hawkins' lab. They follow a blood trail, presumably from Holly after she was taken, and it leads them straight to this wall. The trail ends there, and they find one of Holly's shoes on the ground. So what is this wall? Is it new? Or has it always been there? The thing is, no one's ever spent significant time exploring the Upside Down before. The characters go in, they accomplish their mission, they get out as fast as possible. No one's been mapping the place or documenting its boundaries. So this wall could have existed all along, and they're only just now discovering it. Or it could be a recent development, something that appeared after the rifts opened at the end of Season 4. The Duffers have hinted that this wall marks the boundary between two different things. On one side, you've got the Upside Down, the twisted version of Hawkins that we've seen throughout the series. It's dark, it's decaying, it's covered in vines and particles, but it's still recognisably Hawkins. The buildings are there, the streets are there, everything's just corrupted. On the other side of the wall, though, there might be something different. Pure Dimension X, the natural state of this realm before it got twisted into the Upside Down. This goes back to what we talked about earlier with the Mind Flayer. Dimension X existed before Vecna, before any of this started. It's the place where the Mind Flayer lived, this ancient dimension full of cosmic horror. When 11 blasted Henry Creel into this dimension in 1979, he landed in Dimension X, and over time his presence, combined with the Mind Flayer's influence, created the Upside Down. The twisted reflection of Hawkins, the decaying version of reality that's been threatening everyone since Season 1. If that theory is correct, the wall represents the limit of Vecna's creation. Beyond it is the original Dimension X, untouched by his influence. And that raises some interesting questions. What's on the other side? Are there other creatures, other horrors that haven't crossed into the Upside Down yet? Is the Mind Flayer beyond that wall, waiting? The military certainly thinks there's something important there. Otherwise, they wouldn't have built a facility right at that boundary. Holly being taken through the wall suggests it's not an impenetrable barrier. Things can pass through, or at least Vecna can move things through. Maybe he's expanding his territory, pushing the boundary of the Upside Down further into Dimension X. Or maybe he's accessing something on the other side, drawing power from the pure, untainted evil of that original dimension. It's properly creepy when you think about it. The Upside Down is horrifying, but it's still based on Hawkins. It's familiar in a nightmare sort of way. Dimension X, though, that's completely unknown. And unknown is always scarier. Now, one of the weirdest established facts about the Upside Down is that it's frozen in time. Specifically, it's stuck on November 6th, 1983. That's the day Will was taken, the day this whole nightmare started. Nancy discovered this back in Season 4. When she went into the Upside Down, she found her room exactly as it was in 1983. Her old posters, her diary entries from that year, everything. Nothing from after that date exists in the Upside Down. Why that specific date? It can't be random. The Duffers don't do random. The most popular theory is that the Upside Down is essentially a snapshot of Hawkins, taken at the moment of Will's abduction. When Vecna took Will into the Upside Down, something changed. The dimension locked onto that specific moment and never moved forward. It's like the Upside Down created a template based on Hawkins as it existed on November 6, 1983, and that template has remained static ever since. Will's connection is crucial to this. He's the first victim, the first child Vecna took. And as we learned in Vol 1, that wasn't an accident. Vecna had a plan, and Will was the starting point. If Will's abduction is what caused the Upside Down to freeze on that date, it suggests his connection to this place is even deeper than we realised. He's not just another victim, he's fundamentally linked to the creation or evolution of the upside down itself. There's also the question of why the upside down is a copy of Hawkins at all. Why not some completely alien landscape? Why does it mirror the real world so closely? One theory is that the upside down is a reflection created by the people who've been taken there. Will was taken first, and he knew Hawkins. His memories, his knowledge of the town, influenced what the upside down became. Vecna's memories added to it, creating the Creel house and other locations. It's like the dimension is feeding off the minds of the people who enter it, building itself from their experiences. But that theory has holes. The upside down existed before Will was taken, at least in some form. The Demogorgon came through in episode 1, which means there was already a dimension on the other side of that gate. So maybe the freezing in time is specific to certain areas or certain aspects of the upside down. Maybe the parts of the upside down that mirror Hawkins are frozen in 1983, but other parts, the deeper parts, exist outside of time entirely. Season 5 is set in fall 1987. That means we're approaching the 5-year anniversary of Will's disappearance. And anniversaries are always significant in Stranger Things. The show loves its patterns, its callbacks, its cyclical nature. November 6th has appeared again and again throughout the series. It's the day Will was taken. It's a date that shows up in Vecna's memories, including that November 6th, 1959 moment from the Broadway play. The Duffers are building towards something, and that anniversary is going to matter, which brings us to time travel. The wormhole discussion in Mr. Clark's class in Vol 1 felt very deliberate. Mr. Clark has always been the character who explains the science behind the supernatural stuff happening in Hawkins. When he talks about wormholes, about theoretical physics, about the possibility of travelling through time, you pay attention, because the Duffers are using him to set up whatever's coming next. Fans have been theorising about time travel since Season 4, but Vol 1 made those theories feel a lot more plausible. What if the heroes figure out a way to go back to November 6th, 1983? What if they can stop Vecna's plan before it ever starts? If Will never gets taken, if that first gate never opens, does the entire nightmare get prevented? It's very Avengers. Endgame and the Duffers have been open about their love for the MCU. They've borrowed ideas from Marvel before, and time travel is such a massive storytelling device that it's hard to resist. The appeal is obvious. You go back, you fix the mistake, you save everyone. But the reality is always more complicated. If the heroes go back and prevent Will's abduction, what happens to their memories? Do they lose everything they've experienced over the past 5 seasons? All the friendships, all the growth, all the moments that made them who they are? That's the classic time travel paradox. You fix the past, but you erase the present. And for characters like Mike, Dustin, and Lucas, their entire friendship with Eleven is based on the events that started with Will's disappearance. If that never happens, do they never meet her? Do they never become the family they are now? There's also the bootstrap paradox. If you go back in time to stop something from happening and you succeed, then there's no reason for you to go back in time in the first place. It's a loop that doesn't make logical sense. The Duffers would have to find a way around that, some explanation for why the time travel works without creating impossible contradictions. My guess is that if time travel happens, it's not about changing the past, it's about closing a loop that's already there. The upside down being stuck in 1983 suggests time is already broken in some way. Maybe the heroes don't go back to prevent Will's abduction. Maybe they go back to ensure something specific happens, something that's necessary for them to win in the present. It's not about rewriting history, it's about completing it. Netflix's synopsis for Vol 2 and 3 mentions time itself unraveling, which is a pretty big clue. Time is going to be a factor in these final episodes. Whether that's literal time travel or something more abstract, like time moving differently in Vecna's mindscape, remains to be seen. But the Duffers are clearly playing with temporal concepts in a way they haven't before. Max's experience in Vecna's mind supports this. She's cycling through his memories, jumping between different moments in his past. That's a form of time displacement. She's experiencing 1979, when 11 blasted him into the Upside Down. She's experiencing his high school years from decades earlier. She's existing in multiple time periods at once, all within the prison of his mind. If Vecna can manipulate time within his memories, maybe he can manipulate it in other ways too. And then there's the November 6th pattern, 1959, 1983, and now the approach of November 6, 1987 in Season 5. These dates are connected somehow. Maybe they're all part of the same event, viewed from different points in time. Maybe the heroes realize they need to break the cycle to ensure that November 6th never becomes significant again. Time travel in fiction is always tricky. Done well, it can be incredibly satisfying. Done poorly, it feels like a cheap way to undo consequences. The Duffers are smart writers and they've been planning this ending for years. If they're going to use time travel, they'll do it in a way that feels earned and meaningful. But I won't lie, the idea makes me nervous. Time travel can solve everything or ruin everything, and there's not much middle ground. So what is the Upside Down, really? We've got theories about dimensions, about corruption, about the Mind Flayer and Vecna, and templates frozen in time. But the Duffers have promised a definitive answer. Matt Duffer has said, "We will finally explain what this place is." Is it a dimension? That's the simplest explanation. The Upside Down is Dimension X, or a corrupted version of it, and it's always existed separate from our reality. The gates are just doorways between dimensions, and closing them permanently would seal off the Upside Down forever. Is it a mindscape? Some fans think the Upside Down isn't a physical place at all. It's a collective nightmare, a mental construct created by powerful psychic energy. Vecna's mind, Eleven's mind, the minds of everyone who's been connected to it. That would explain why it mirrors Hawkins so closely. It's built from the memories and fears of the people who've touched it. Is it a construct? Maybe Vecna and the Mind Flayer literally created the Upside Down. It didn't exist before, or it existed in a completely different form, and their combined power warped Dimension X into this twisted reflection of Hawkins. If that's true, destroying the creators might destroy the creation. Or is it something else entirely? The Duffers have been sitting on this answer since Season 1. They wrote that 25-page document explaining the mythology, the rules, the truth behind everything. Whatever the Upside Down actually is, it's been planned from the beginning. And that means the reveal is going to be massive. I think the answer is probably a combination of several theories. The Upside Down is Dimension X, corrupted by the Mind Flayer and shaped by Vecna. It's frozen in 1983 because of Will's connection. It mirrors Hawkins because it feeds on the memories and fears of the people who enter it. And it's connected to time in ways we haven't fully understood yet. All of these pieces fit together into one cohesive explanation that the Duffers will finally give us in the final episode. But until then, we're left with questions. And honestly, that's part of what makes Stranger Things so compelling. The mystery, the speculation, the sense that there's always something deeper. Beneath the surface, we're so close to getting answers now. Just a few more episodes and we'll finally know the truth. So after all that, let's talk about how this actually ends. The most likely scenario, Will makes the ultimate sacrifice, using his channeled Vecna powers to destroy the villain whilst dying in the process. Steve probably dies protecting someone, completing his redemption arc. 11 loses her powers, but survives. The Mind Flayer is revealed as the true threat and gets defeated alongside Vecna. Max escapes the Mindscape and reunites with Lucas. Holly and the children are saved. Hopper survives because he deserves a happy ending with Joyce. It's bittersweet. Not everyone makes it, but Hawkins is saved. The tragic version? Multiple major deaths. Some heroes trapped in the Upside Down permanently. keeping the gates closed from inside. 11, Mike and Hopper, building a new life there whilst the others move on. It would be devastating, but the Duffers have promised tears. The optimistic version. Only Vecna dies. Everyone else survives with scars, gates close permanently, and life resumes. It's the least likely scenario because it feels too easy. But here's the thing. The Duffers love subverting expectations. Maybe everyone I think is doomed survives. Maybe the characters I think are safe don't make it. We'll know soon enough. And that, my dear friends, is where we'll end tonight's deep dive into Stranger Things theories. Vol 2 drops on Christmas Day, the finale on New Year's Eve. We'll all be crying into our holiday meals, apparently. But until we know who lives, who dies, and whether the Upside Down is truly gone, keep theorising, keep hoping, and keep your flashlights ready. Stay safe, and sweet dreams.